Trent Cotney and John Kenney are dedicated to helping the construction industry with legal business and safety challenges. Welcome to this week's episode of Law and Mortar.
Hey, this is Trent Cotney. I'd like to welcome everybody to episode 90 of Law and Mortar. John, as always, it's great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. How about yourself? How are things going?
Doing good. Yes, as our audience knows, John Kenney is the master of everything construction, and we've got a great lineup of topics for you today. First off, John, I want to kind of do a little preview of the FRSA Expo.
Mhm.
For our listeners out there, regardless of whether you're roofing or not, FRSA is a very large, roofing and construction expo that happens in Orlando every year. It's about to happen here in a couple weeks. And John, what are you looking forward to? I know you're speaking. I know you're doing a lot of different things. Tell me what your itinerary is going to be like.
Well, I definitely am looking forward to that, lack of a better term, that camaraderie of getting back to the local roofers in the state of Florida, hearing how things are going. I always find it so provocative and thought a process in it to hear what everybody's got going on. I mean, we've all, as anybody in the industry knows, when you're in your local areas, this is our local area. We've known these people for 20, 25 years plus. So it's always good in seeing new people and bringing new people into the industry, hear what's going on, how they're dealing with things, what they think about things. And also, it's a lot of fun to kind of forget about roofing a little bit and just talk about everybody's families and what's new and exciting out there. But that, and I'm interested to go around the show for sure. I hear there's a lot of sold out floor expo again. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting. I do like the floor expo at Florida because you have to be, Florida product approved in the state of Florida to do anything. So it's really just products that pertain to the, enormous contract base that's going to be here in the state. Other than that, I'll give a plug for the speaking now. You and I'll let you take that off after we get done here, are doing the history and roofing again this year. We haven't done that since the 100th, so I'm looking forward to that. And if you're listening out there and estimating, I'm doing two this year. So not two of the same like I've been. We're doing one on commercial estimating, and then on Wednesday, I'm doing one on estimating for small business. Had a lot of requests come through for that residential contractor, the small startup up to a couple $1 million. So I'm gearing that entire seminar to you this time. So I really, good one for you all to attend.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I've had the pleasure of sitting through at least one of those before, and not only is it a packed audience, but it's the kind of information that you just don't get. I've gone to so many of these shows all over the country. Honestly, you're the only one out there that is giving this level, the 301 type knowledge on estimating, which I think is critical. So looking forward to that. Same here. We got every day we've got something going on. We'll be on the trade show floor. We've got the business luncheon. We got all the things that we normally do. This year, speaking, I've got what I wanted to do is I wanted to pitch something different, and we're doing roofing legal issues. We're doing it every day, so doesn't matter if you can't make it one day, you got 2 more days. Ben Briggs and I are going to talk about the biggest legal issues in roofing as of the day we walk on the trade show floor, right?
Nice.
So it's going to be subcontractors and the new misclassification, rule. It's going to be, wage and hour issues, latest contract provisions, you name it. And then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. And what I found is that, you do a hodgepodge like that, you're going to get a lot of great interaction, a lot of great questions, and everybody walks out learning something. So looking forward to that. I got a lot of the rest of my team will be there, talking about everything from, corporate stuff to licensing. So, looking forward to that part of it. But yeah, I'm with you, man. My favorite part is family. And, this year my son has been going to the FRSA Expo since he's 2, and he's 14 now. And he is going to be manning the booth with me again, at least on the final day. I make him, put up and tear down the booth now. So I don't have to. So I'm looking forward to being able to spend some time with him. He's a good kid, and I'm hoping he'll get in the industry. I don't care what he does. I just hope, I love the industry, and I hope he that transitions on to him. So, it's interesting, and I've had the opportunity. I was at various functions and speaking, and you think about the future, right? I just talked about how I want my son, you know, to get into roofing. And what's interesting, and John, you and I have talked about this before, is it feels like, you know, construction and roofing in particular is right there at an evolutionary change, right? Things are changing rapidly for roofing. And what I mean by that is you see the dominance of skilled labor. It went from being, you know, a portion to all almost in residential and a good part of commercial. We see the rise of private equity, right, taking over and you know, creating consolidation among contractors, not just contractors, but also, you know, you look at the SRS Home Depot purchase and other things like this. And it makes you think about, you know, what the future is going to be. You know, I'm curious to see kind of what your thoughts are on that, and I'll share a few things that I picked up on the road.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree 100%. It's an evolutionary change. We've talked about this over the last couple of years, and we've talked about this when we've talked about technology. But being an older lad in the industry, I can come from when we had very little or no single ply. I remember when it came into the industry, and that was an evolutionary change. It really was. And a lot of roofers couldn't make that change. And a lot of new roofers came in. That was the birth of the single ply contractor. Completely different model and going to business, less assets required. That was a major change. So prior to that, for 145, 50 years, nothing really changed. Roofing was done the same way. Now you're correct. I think this is even taking it to that next level up the ladder because of private equity being there. Consolidations have already happened in the manufacturing and continue to happen. When you think there's not enough consolidation, there's more. Now you've got the consolidation we're talking about now. Home Depot, with the SRS consolidation, is now in the commercial roofing industry. Whether they wanted to be before or not, they are, which I think they did. And now your contractors are generationally, like you said, are going away because that's the only way they can get exit out now is through private equity. And there's a lot of internal, besides private equity, there's a lot of roofing companies buying out other roofing companies to gain their stake there. So yeah, then you throw technology on top of all that. You talk about a mixed cake with icing that we're not sure how it's going to taste or come out. We're there. We're on the verge right now.
Yeah, you know, I tend to agree. I don't know what the future holds, but you know, I echo your sentiment that if you don't improvise, adapt, and overcome, you'll get left behind, right? And you know, one of the things that was brought up, and I guess some food for thought for our audience is we've seen a lot of, you know, consolidation and you know, acquisition by private equity within the contractor space, within the manufacturing space. Also, you know, Gulf Ego had a recent acquisition and distribution. And, you know, you wonder at some point if there's going to be some vertical integration, right? If you're going to see manufacturing, distributing, and installation all in one. A lot of other construction related industries do that. You know, it exists in a smaller fashion with sort of niche areas within roofing, but are we going to see that on a large scale? I don't know. You know, I don't know what the future holds, but I can tell you it is changing faster than we can keep up with at this point. It
It
is
is.
exponentially changing, and it's exciting times. I think, you know,
Yeah.
this is you and I have always said it, that anytime there's a gap between supply and demand, that technology fills that gap. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing an evolutionary change in how roofing is done. So I'm excited. You know, honestly, it's yeah, I think it's challenging. I think, you know, that there's a risk that you lose some of that identity, but at the end of the day, this is where we need to go. You know, I mean, we've got to figure out how do we evolve and you know, stay relevant you know, within construction. So I don't know.
I
What
think you're you know, getting the feedback in your statement on vertical, it's extremely powerful. When built up roofing first came out in the early, you know, early to mid 1800s, when it started to take birth in about 1840s, really took off. There were factory teams. That's what you had. Okay, there were no distributors. They didn't exist. So it was the manufacturers, and they had their own roofers installing right from the manufacturer. Then it got so large so quick they didn't have the systems and processes like we got today with technology to do it. And then I also remember when I started in the industry, your middle person, your vendors, those serve a big part of our industry, they were far and few between. We bought mainly off of the factories as contractors, our yearly budgets, and we installed. Yes, there was some local supply houses and that were around, but they more dealt with the up and coming startups. And I think you're actually going to relive that. I think that's a great point. So if I was going to go out and not get deep into this, because I don't want 1,000 questions everywhere I go from people saying, why did you say that? But I think we are going to see somebody with vertical integration here within the next couple years.
Yeah, it's a interesting topic, interesting idea, and we'll see what will come. Well, John, before we get to your favorite part, I do want to hear more about what you're doing here coming up in Lakeland. It sounds like you're already got a big turnout, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you got going on?
Yeah, so again, you follow me, we all follow each other on social media, and I've been running around doing estimating training all over. So I put together from that kind of is a couple day basic course, but I've gotten a lot of requests for some really deep dive integral estimating workshops. So I put the first one together. It's going to be July 23rd and 24th, which is a Tuesday, Wednesday in Lakeland, Florida. I just released it out in the last week, and right now the class is half full because I am limiting it, because I want to have everybody to be able to get hands-on. So if you're listening and you haven't signed up, there is still time. It's not happening for 2 months, but I expect the class to fill up quickly. And of course, we'll have more. But this is going to be everything you've ever heard me talk about and you've seen me teach before, and that this is taking it to the very next level. This is going to be really in depth. So when you leave there, you're going to be able to bid pretty much any type of project and understand how to get to where you need to be.
Wow, that sounds like a must see for sure. So, I want to turn now to your favorite time, but I got one question that I picked out in particular,
Okay.
and this has to do with we're keeping to the futures theme a little bit. So the question that Susan has asked here is she has asked about drones, and she doesn't have a drone and she doesn't know a lot about it. She's just seen stuff on YouTube or what she's talked to her friends about. And kind of summarizing here, she wants to know, is there anything that you would suggest that she look at, any specific features, or what should she be considering if she decides to get a drone for her business?
Well, that's a great question, Susan, because I could tell you drones right now are kind of like the iPhones and all the other technology when it came out. What I tell you today will not be valuable 6 months from now, because it'll be something even better. But there's a couple reasons. What you want to look for is don't buy more than what you need. And I mean that a lot, because there's a huge amount of features out there. But again, it's like I just said, there will be outdated and there'll be something else. And drones are like any other technology. They're getting cheaper and cheaper every single year as they consolidate down. But what you want to look for is, one is, if you are considering it yourself, you do have to go, someone has to go past the test, FAA test, to run a drone. That's mandatory. You have to be licensed. It's fines and up to jail time, I believe, now, if you're not a licensed drone operator. So you have to take that in consideration. Other than that, it's the equipment. Get the equipment that works best for you. Make sure it has the right camera on it. Some of them do infrared, some of them do 3D, whatever fits best for your business. But drone technology absolutely is becoming more and more mainstream in our industry. So I can see why you'd be interested. And you can probably, honestly, for most roofers, you can get a drone for anywhere from near $1,000 up to $3,000, depending on what you want. So it's not as far as equipment goes, it's not an overkill, but it's the operator you got to make sure that you have in place.
Yeah, sage advice, and I guess I would say it depends on what you want to use the drone for. Susan didn't really say in her question here, but if you're just using it to take photos, that's one thing. If you're using it to potentially, do takeoffs or, infrared or something like that, that's another thing. Keep it simple. There's a lot of flashy drones out there, and it's like John said, it's like TVs. I bought a TV 3 years ago. It's already outdated, right? I can't even get the current apps on it. So keep it simple. The other thing I would say is, obviously, put my lawyer hat back on. If you're running a drone, you might want to think about housing that drone in a separate entity and, contracting some of that out, shielding some of that liability from yourself. Obviously there's some pass-through liability, but, talk to your insurance agent about, benefits there. There may be some tax benefits as well in doing that, but consider housing some of that in a separate entity. I see that done with all kinds of equipment, so it makes sense for drones as well, especially given that, you know, if they're flying, they could hit something, you know, unintentionally. So
The only thing I can add to that, since you brought up about usage, that is a great way to get a younger generation into our industry. Okay, I've had a lot of companies I've worked with and know of that have been able to get that 18 to 20-year-old into the industry and that. But a lot of people say, well, it's too expensive just to hire somebody to do that. Here's how you can do it. Use it for your estimating and your takeoffs. Use it to keep an eye on your productivity and quality, and use it for your safety. You can take photos of all your projects. So this is one person that can come in and work over 3 of your departments within your company. And I will tell you what you'll save in, you know, checking out your productivity and efficiency, and more importantly, keeping an eye on your own safety, using them as training, lessons learned type of deal. I think it values a lot for an owner to be able to have that access in. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
yep, you hit it, brother, as always. So with that, John, it brings us to an end to yet another great episode. I'd like to thank you, as always, and thank our loyal audience for making us the #1 construction law podcast in the world. Stay tuned next week for another episode of Law and Mortar. If you'd like to reach me, you can reach me. I'm Trent Cotney. You can reach me at Trent Cotney or trent.cotney@arlaw.com. John, how can they get you?
Get me at jkenney@cotneyconsulting.com or hit me up on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Take care now.